In the heart of an ancient civilization, where power and fear danced side by side, a young woman stood out as a light amidst the darkness. Imagine being torn from your ordinary life and thrust into a palace surrounded by intrigue and secrets. Now, envision the courage required to risk everything for your people. This is the story of Queen Esther. But what led her to confront a powerful king at a time when a woman's life was worth almost nothing? What motivated her to rise in a moment of crisis when many remained silent? And what if I told you that even amidst luxury and oppression, Esther became a voice of hope for the helpless? As we follow her path, prepare to discover unexpected twists and decisions that changed the destiny of a nation. What would you do if you were in her place? The struggle between duty and love, fear and bravery, is about to be revealed. Stay tuned, for each choice could be the key to survival. Let's unravel this epic narrative together. ####, historical and cultural context. When I think about the historical context in which Queen Esther lived, I can't help but imagine the heavy atmosphere of exile that the Jews faced in Persia. The year was approximately 486 BC, and the Jews were far from their homeland, Jerusalem, living under Persian rule. Exile was not just a matter of physical displacement, but also a cultural challenge. Jewish traditions were under constant threat of assimilation. The Persians, known for their religious tolerance, offered an environment that, on one hand, allowed the practice of Jewish faith, but on the other hand, also encouraged the adoption of Persian customs and values. Persian culture, rich in its traditions and customs, influenced the daily lives of the Jews. Festivities, clothing, and even the spoken language were blending together. Hebrew, the sacred language of the Jews, coexisted with Aramaic and Persian. This cultural mix makes me think about how Jewish identity was constantly negotiated. The Jews found themselves at a crossroads, maintaining their traditions or adapting to the new environment surrounding them. The challenge was great, but so was their resilience. In this uncertain scenario, the figure of Esther emerges as a symbol of hope. She was a young Jewish woman who, upon being chosen as queen, represented not just the rise of an individual but also the chance for a people to be heard. The palace of Xerxes became a microcosm of the tensions between Persian culture and Jewish traditions. Life at court demanded extraordinary diplomatic skills, and Esther would need to navigate these turbulent waters with cunning and courage. Mordecai, Esther's uncle, also plays a crucial role in this context. He is the link between the young queen and her people, someone who not only guides her but also becomes a symbol of Jewish resistance. His interactions and advice are crucial to the narrative, showing how identity and culture can be preserved even in times of adversity. Thus, the story of Esther is not just the story of a woman but the story of a people struggling to maintain their identity in a world that sought to erase it. The influence of Persian culture on Jewish traditions was not limited to daily life. It also reflected in religious practices. Some traditions that the Jews maintained were adapted to fit into this new reality. The celebration of festivals, for example, began to incorporate Persian elements, creating a new form of cultural expression that still preserved the Jewish essence. Therefore, the historical and cultural context in which Esther lived is essential to understanding the complexities of her story and the resilience of her people. Main characters. When discussing the central characters in the story of Esther, it is impossible not to start with Esther herself. She is a fascinating figure, not only because of her beauty but also because of the strength and intelligence she demonstrated throughout the narrative. From the moment she is taken to the palace, it becomes clear that Esther is not just a young Jewish woman but a woman with an important destiny to fulfill. Her ability to adapt to the Persian court environment without forgetting her roots is one of the keys that make her so special. The way she presents herself, both as a queen and as a Jew, reflects the complexity of her identity. Mordecai, her uncle and mentor, is another central character who deserves attention. He represents the wisdom and courage of the Jewish people. Mordecai is not just an advisor but a symbol of resistance. His refusal to bow to Haman, the villain of the story, demonstrates an unwavering commitment to his faith and identity. The relationship between Mordecai and Esther is one of the most touching aspects of the narrative. He encourages her to use her position to save her people, showing that even in a hostile environment, hope and courage can prevail. Xerxes, the Persian king, is a complex character. Despite his position of power, he is often portrayed as someone easily manipulated, especially by Haman. His relationship with Esther is both one of love and power. He fell in love with her, but he also represents the authority that can be both protection and a threat. The dynamic between Esther and Xerxes illustrates how love and politics can intertwine in unexpected ways. And of course we cannot forget Haman, the antagonist who becomes the symbol of hatred and oppression. His ambition and desire to eliminate the Jews reveal the dangers of prejudice and intolerance. The interaction between Haman and the other characters highlights the tensions that permeate the narrative. While Mordecai represents resistance, Haman symbolizes the oppression the Jews faced. Their rivalry is one of the driving forces of the plot, leading Esther to make the crucial decision to intervene. These characters, with their interactions and conflicts, form the fabric of the narrative. Each of them adds a layer of complexity that enriches the story. Esther and Mordecai's struggle against Haman, and Xerxes' search for love and control, are reflected in a setting that questions identity, faith, and courage. Thus, the story of Esther is not just a tale of heroism but a reflection on the human condition in times of crisis. Esther's courage. Esther's courage is one of the most inspiring aspects of the narrative. When I think about the moment she decides to present herself before the king without being called, I feel a chill. This decision was not just risky, it was an act of bravery that could have cost her life. Esther knew that by doing this, she was breaking a royal protocol that could result in her execution. However, her determination to save her people drove her to act. This courage is a central theme in the story, showing that even in the face of fear, it is possible to find the strength to fight for what is right. Esther was not a warrior in the traditional sense, but her strength lay in her intelligence and ability to communicate. She used her position as queen to infiltrate the spheres of power, which makes me think of how often we are called to act in situations where courage is the only option. The way she prayed and fasted before presenting herself to the king shows the importance of spirituality and preparation. Esther's faith is not just a passive belief, it is an active force that motivates her to make difficult decisions. The beauty of Esther's courage lies in her vulnerability. She is not an invulnerable heroine. She feels fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This makes her more human and, therefore, more relatable. The way she approaches Xerxes, first with a banquet and then revealing her true identity, is an example of how courage can manifest in subtle but powerful ways. By creating a safe space for dialogue, she not only protects herself but also her people. Furthermore, Esther's courage is a reminder that often the greatest changes come from individual actions. Her decision to stand up and fight against injustice had a profound impact on the lives of her people. This makes me reflect on the power each of us has to make a difference, even in situations that seem impossible. Esther's story teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Ultimately, Esther's courage transcends the context of the story and becomes a timeless lesson. In a world full of challenges and injustices, her story continues to inspire those who face their own battles. Esther's legacy teaches us that true bravery is found in the willingness to fight for our values and protect those we love, even when the odds are against us. #### Themes of Identity and Faith. The themes of identity and faith permeate Esther's story in a profound and complex way. Esther's struggle with her Jewish identity is one of the most intriguing facets of the narrative. While living in the Persian court, she is forced to hide who she truly is, and this creates an internal conflict. The pressure to adapt to Persian culture is immense, making me think about how many people face similar dilemmas in their lives. How do we balance the need to integrate into a new environment without losing our roots? Esther, upon becoming queen, is in a unique but vulnerable position, as she must decide how far she is willing to go to protect her people. Esther's faith is another central theme that unfolds throughout the story. Her willingness to fast and pray before approaching the king reflects a deep connection with her beliefs and a trust in something greater than herself. This spiritual aspect of the narrative is fundamental because it shows that faith can be a driving force in times of crisis. Esther's courage is not just a matter of physical bravery. It is also an expression of her faith in God and the protection He can offer her people. The relationship between identity and faith in Esther's story is complex and intertwined. Her faith strengthens her identity, and her identity as a Jew is what drives her actions. This relationship highlights the importance of staying true to one's beliefs and heritage, even in a world that often seeks to assimilate or erase them. Esther's story reminds us that identity and faith are not just personal choices but powerful forces that can shape history and inspire future generations. In conclusion, the story of Esther is a rich tapestry of courage, identity, and faith. It challenges us to consider how we navigate our own identities in